the child has said that they use a lot of adjectives. Don't do that because flaky and gray-green are describing plants, whereas drippy, frizzy, and hairy are describing the branches. So when you write an example like this, I advise you not to because they've given you 1 mark, but you will not be able to explain it properly. Because it's comparing different things, you're actually going, because yes, you've identified examples, sure, but you're not comparing them properly. Sorry, you're not explaining them properly, and that becomes a problem. A major, major, major problem. All right. So because of this, you will lose marks in your explanation. So choose a very, specific example and just explain it. Don't try to be very over smart. Don't try to say, okay, fine. So if I use multiple examples and all of these things, don't do that. Your explanation will be confusing. So rather than confusing yourself and the examiner and then writing a lot, because remember 2.4 minutes per mark, you can write what? You can spend 35 minutes, 35, 38 minutes for the question 1 section, then you can choose maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes here, right? So don't write a lot of it. The writer uses language beautifully to portray. Why would you want to write that? Why can't you just write it simply? The writer portrays. Why write the language beautifully? Uses language beautifully. You don't need to write these extra words. Please don't. You're going to lose out on space. It adds absolutely zero value to your answer. Remember, your writing skill is not being assessed here, okay? Just write the writer portrays. He uses language beautifully to portray, not required. Okay, so again, I will not go over the low-level response. I'm just going to go over the common mistakes, and in it, they clearly say careful and precise explanation of meanings. So they don't want generic meanings at all. It has to be careful, has to be precise. Okay, so you're saying language effectively. So the language effectively conveys Mo's feelings. So you need to find words here, description. So it's not going to say, I'm Mo, I'm sad. Find an example of Mo feeling. Sorry, my laptop went wonky. So you read this section and figure out what Mo is feeling, right? So which examples or which descriptions show that Mo is feeling sad or happy or whatever? So suppose, Manal, if it said it was a dull day, it was raining, what is Mo feeling? Because it's raining, Mo is feeling sad. Rain is usually referred to as sad. It's dull, gray. If it's a dark, stormy night, they're trying to create, a spooky atmosphere, a scary atmosphere. So you have to read the description and try to express what Mo is feeling. All right, I hope that answers your question. So that's question 2. So I'm just going to go back to the top and yes, Munib, you can state the use of literary devices. That's absolutely fine. That just shows greater understanding, so you will get your mark there. Now, text B is for your summary, right? So the summary task is divided into 2 points. First is the summary task itself, and the second part is the short response task, okay? This text is going to be around 550 to 600 words. This sort of task requires a more informative text, right? So it can be narrative, but it will be more informative. It says over here, continuous writing. This does not mean that you have to write 1 paragraph. I also encourage my students to write 1 paragraph, but continuous writing means writing in prose. It means don't write the points with, transition words in between them. So you can write one paragraph, two paragraphs, the number of paragraphs does not matter. Ideally one paragraph, but if you want to split it in two, that's also fine. And you cannot go above 150 words at all. So you can go below 150 words, but not above 150 words. Under any circumstances, you can't do that. You've got 5 marks for reading. You do not need to find implicit meaning. Only obvious points will be stated. And you need to, yes, of course, SN, you can use transitional words like moreover and all of these in between. So, and then they're going to give you marks for, you know, selecting specific information. So no extra detail, no examples. You get marks for organization and structuring your ideas. All right, so group all similar points together and you get your own words marks here, which is using a range of vocabulary and sentence structures. Now, I know, short response task. Again, here you have to show understanding of the implicit meaning and attitude. So this I'll discuss in more detail when we come to that section. Now, the steps for writing the summary are exactly the same as they used to be before. Please, please, please read the summary. Question first. So here it says, summarize what would appeal most to guests, right? You found your key rubric, go to the text, find every single point. So here again, ideally read the passage twice, right? So the first time, just read the passage. Second time, underline, you know, important points over here. Here, I'm just underlining random stuff, folks. So just underline your key points. Then what I suggest is you can take a rough piece of paper. You've got enough space in the paper as well. Show your brainstorming, but clearly mark your brainstorming, please. Write brainstorming or planning on top of it. And list your points together and then combine your points. Now, this specimen answer, if you notice, has paragraphs and full marks, absolutely full marks. This is very rare. It's very rarely given that you get full marks, but when you read this, you'll notice that the child is not just using points with transition words in the middle. Yes, there are transition words for sure. You've got your moreovers, you've got your finallys, right? You've got all of these, but you've also got complex sentence structures. So look at this one. It's a complex sentence structure, right? You've got your furthermore here as well. And if you notice, the structure of this summary is what is amazing. So they have literally taken points and grouped them together. No first person, no second person, no third person. All right. So let me just read the questions here. Sana Mohsen, what's your question? What does this child get 1 out of 3? Oh, you're asking why the child got 1 out of 3. Basically, the child's answer, the explanation was not good, right? That's why the child got 1 out of 3. I hope that's the question you were looking for. If not, then can you please just ask again? Alicia, again. Okay, wait. I will stop sharing my screen and share it again. I hope it works now. Okay, so Alicia, again, I have been instructed to cancel out your brainstorming is also fine. If that makes more sense, if you know, like examiners are pretty smart people. If you just write brainstorming on top of it, that's fine. If you want to, for the sake of being sure, cross it off, cross it off. Okay, it doesn't make a difference. So I'm not going to read the summary specifically, right? Basically, the child has chosen a lot of points. You can go over this yourself. The child has almost 10 points. Ideally, in the summary, sorry, isn't your question is, do we get marks for using, okay, punctuation is going to be marked for sentence structure. So you get marked for sentence structure, right? For W3. So if you use colons, semicolons, and hyphens, that shows complex sentence structure. So you do get marks for complex sentences, all right? Because they want you to do something that is you know, like not just listing your points with transition words in the middle. All right. Okay. Again, over here, grammar, punctuation, spelling per se is not marked, but in your sentence structures, if you use, you know, if you write a complex sentence, then be sure that your punctuation is there. All right. So, right. So yeah, sorry, I was talking about the number of points. When you're looking for points, look for as many points as you can. In general, they will give you around 12 content points. So in each summary, there will be around 12 content points. 12 to 15, sorry, your 1123 students. So they'll give you 12 to 15 content points. You need to use a minimum of 10 to 12 points in your summary, right? If you are going over the 150 word limit, it is better to lose a couple of points rather than go over the word limit, all right? Now, the second specimen answer. When you read it, you see that the child is missing, the child has incorporated very few points. Okay, so your teacher has told you that you can always use a semicolon after a transition word. Other teachers here, could you please comment on this? Because I don't think that is correct. Semicolons can be used instead of commas, yes, but not
There's a very
for all.
specific way of using it after a transition word, and it requires for both clauses. You want to turn both clauses independent, so you
Exactly.
can always use it after a.
So semicolons are used after the transition word if both of them are main clauses, right? You can use semicolons to join two main clauses together even without a transition word. Semicolons generally are used instead of commas, yes, in listing as well, but I don't think that they can be used generally every single time. I may be incorrect. There's other teachers here as well. Thank you, Ms. Ada, for sharing. If teachers can answer this question, that would be great. So Sahal's question, I don't think that's correct grammar, but you know, because there's only, I think, 2 rules of commas where semicolons can replace the comma, right? And for transition words, it's usually both main clauses. The 2 clauses that are being combined are main clauses. Now, when we talk about vocabulary, Manal, we're not talking about complicated words. So good vocabulary means you convert it into your own words, use simple language as well as complex language, that's fine. Linking devices is, yes, obviously a necessity. But when you are using linking devices, this does not mean that only use linking devices. Again, go for compound and complex sentences as well. Okay. And the child, again, because they are over here. Okay, so I think Ism has a question. The use of your colon is correct. And the use of your semicolon is also correct. I don't know which essay you're talking about. And if your essay is shorter than the limit by 10, 12 words, that's forgivable. Just like a couple of 10, 12 words over the limit is also forgivable. I need to read the whole essay, Isn't for me to give you the grade. All right? You should be fine, don't worry. Manal, I cannot because I have to finish this and we only have 2 hours, and which means we only have 33 minutes left in our 2 hours, all right? You can maybe go online and search. It's not that complicated, right? So over here, the child is getting 6 marks out of 10 in writing. The problem is that the child's writing skills, if you look at it, they're disjointed at some points where the child could have used proper vocabulary there could have been better words used. The child also uses, where is it? Yeah, so things like this could have been converted into a proper complex sentence, but they weren't. So the thing is that the child uses similar sentence structures throughout, and that's the problem. Spelling and grammar are not marked in the summary, right? And they are not marked at any point in this paper at all. You will not get a recording of this, Anib. Sorry, but the paid workshops are never put up. You'll get snippets of this on YouTube. But the very first workshop I did for 1123, you will get the recording for that is already up there. I haven't gone in this much detail with the questions, but you can kind of go over, I've given similar tips. You can go over that recording. Right, so the child could have improved their sentence structure, maybe better range of vocabulary, choose better words. They're also kind of giving very specific examples here. And then the use of you. You don't need to put you in your summary at all, right? If you read this, it's a bit, I feel I would have marked it a bit harsher, but like Ibrahim said, I am an evil monster. So that's just me. I would have marked the child possibly a little bit lower for writing as well. Because there's a lack of clarity in the sentences and things like a treehouse called the UFO is opening in October. There's a lot of like, you see, this is why the child is losing reading marks as well. The points that the child has selected are not correct either. So yeah, have to select specific information. Now the low level summary, you can go over it yourself. It's just a repetition of the text. Again, things like in text B, don't write these things. Just focus on the points. You're summarizing, you're not repeating the text, but the child has done a lot of these things. You can go over this. I want to come to this question. So Kiran, this is what you're asking as well. And you also asked about the summary writing, writing the points. I'm sorry, your question has gone, yeah. So evidence of planning is encouraged for summary writing. Yes, you can do it on the paper. You can do it roughly on any side. You can do it on the insert itself because that will help them organize their points. Alicia, the link for this document, I've already downloaded it and shared it on Instagram. So if you go onto our Instagram page, you'll find a folder with all of these documents. You even have a specific document for summary writing in it. All of these resources are published by Cambridge. And I think I've put, no, my resources for paper 2 went in that folder. I didn't put in any of my resources for paper 1. Now, this is the interviewer's question. So Kiran, coming back to your question, when I'm talking to you or you're talking to me, we're two human beings having, communication. So the thing is that we need to sound like humans. So yes, your response shouldn't come across as offensive and aggressive, but you can always say negative. What? Absolutely not, right? You should sound like a human being. Because when we look at the marking schemes for this section, it clearly tells you that marks will be given for the perspective offered. So if you give the relevant perspective, and this is where the implied meaning comes in, that you have to read the text and be the character. You are Kent Lindvall. So if you're the owner of a hotel and somebody comes to you and says, well, people think your hotel has a negative effect on our environment, you're going to be very offended, right? You're going to be absolutely not. I took, care of the forest. I'm helping to preserve the forest. To the contrary, to what people believe. So you're going to refute that. So if it's something that goes against you, you can obviously address the negativity. This is a 5 out of 5 answer. Why? Because the child maintains the correct perspective and the child has developed the ideas and supported them properly, right? So the points you will find obviously from the text. These are points that you are taking out from the text, but you need to write them down as if you yourself are the person in question. You can be anyone. So you have to sound like a human being. Here, you're not writing a summary. So summaries, what I tell my students is summaries should sound like a robot is answering, and this should be like a human is answering. So that's the main difference. Show your emotions for sure. And the examiner says the same thing. There's a consistent and relevant perspective. So your perspective doesn't just end here in the beginning. Oh, no, definitely not. Right? Of course, Alicia, you can say that's a fantastic question. And then you can lead on from there. So obviously it should sound like an interviewer's response. So Alicia, if I ask you a question, about suppose your school, and I'm a news reporter and I come to your school and I say, but people think that students who go to your school are not very smart. Are you going to be like, oh yeah, definitely, we are not very smart? No, you're going to be, oh, we're the smart, oh, come on, we're the smartest kids in Karachi, right? I don't know if you're from Karachi or not, but I'm just going to assume because only smart people live in Karachi, right? So yeah, if you're from another city, then we have to question your smartness. Okay, I'm just joking. No offense to anyone from other cities. So the thing is that if I say, Alicia, that we've heard that your school is fantastic and there's a lot of extracurricular done in your school, and you're like, of course, we have one of the best extracurricular programs in the country. So you have to kind of answer the question the way a human being would answer a question. Asad, that's a very good question. You in the answer should incorporate at least 2 points, right? Isinur Rahman, you are from Islamabad. No wonder you were fighting for the rights of the oppressor and not the oppressed. 2 ideas, Asad, right? And each idea needs to be developed properly, right? Oh, sorry, here. So the question is, some people think that your tree hotel might have a negative effect on our forest environment. So you have to clearly show your opinion. That's 1 mark, right? Each idea that you're going to develop is going to be 1 mark, and the ideas you will take out of the text. So I advise you at least 2 ideas, right? Take out 2 ideas, and for each idea, expand a little, right? So for example, here the child, what have they done? Without the tree hotel, the trees would have all been cut down. So in the text, it says that they bought the land from loggers, people who do logging, right? So so the child uses that point. It should have been, sorry, where is it? The trees would have all been cut down for logging, and then expands or develops the idea. So the development I'll highlight in blue. We're actually maintaining the forest ecosystem, all right, for future generations. This is the development. The second point they've done is we have made efforts to protect the wildlife. And they've also put in a third point here, which is fine. Because all 3 points, the child goes ahead and explains it or develops it. So we're putting in efforts to protect the child life by the film I used to prevent birds from flying into the mirror cube, right? And then they're designed to blend in with the forest as if they were a part of nature. So there is development for each one of the points. So you can put in 3 points. Don't go beyond 3, but minimum 2. All right. So Manal, honestly, it's not so, okay. So honestly, that's a very mellow version of saying it, but yeah, that's fine. But I don't think if I was Kent Lindvall and somebody asked me this question, I wouldn't be that mellow. I'd be like, what? No, that's not true. Right? Something more like appropriate to him. Sahal, your question is a very interesting one. There's no difference. If you want to do the summary first, then go ahead, do the summary first. What I advise you is do all of section B together and all of section A together. I would advise you to do section A first, because the more difficult skills are being tested in questions 3A and 3B. And there's more skills being, checked here. So because it gets you into the rhythm. So in the beginning of the paper, you're more like panicked, there's more nervousness, and then it gives you time to settle. So the comprehension is easier, the easier skills are being tested there. So I would advise you that go for the comprehension first. Spend an hour on section A doing question 1 and question 2. And then you go ahead and attempt section B, which is a summary and this, right? Okay, okay, that helps you. Great. Now let's look at the mid-level response for this answer. So this is a mid-level response. Why? Because what has the examiner written here? It's a generally relevant perspective. It's not specific. So look at the way it's very bland. It doesn't sound like a tree hotel owner. Oh, it just says the tree hotel doesn't have a negative effect. That's not the way you're going to write it, right? So you will have stronger emotions. When somebody is going to call out your business for having a negative impact, you will have a stronger kind of emotion for this, right? So it's generally relevant perspective. All of these things will mark you down. So if your perspective is not as clear, that will be a problem. Okay. So that's it. If you look at the last question here, again, there is very little Kent Lindvall, so there's no perspective given. They're not even getting into character for it. So they've literally given one response for, I think, just writing something relevant down, right? So because the child is showing some awareness of Lindvall's opinion, that's it. So what are the common errors? Using the details from the text and supporting the opinion that you are presenting. Okay. So that's it from my end in terms of presentation. If there's any questions you want answered, I can take those. It would be great if you could possibly raise your hands. If there are any questions here, because there's no questions in the chat. Is there any point anyone needs any clarity for? Please ask. So I assume we're good. So Alicia has a question. Alicia, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Just at some point when there's a very difficult question and I'm stuck on, should I just leave it and go forward to solving other questions?
Yes. So what you should do is if at any point you are stuck, all right, what you should do at that point is you should always write an answer in pencil on the side, right? Or underline a possible answer in the text and mark it. This is question 1, part D, perhaps, right? And then move ahead. Don't write the answer down until you're very sure. Okay, so just look for a possible answer in the text, move ahead, come back to it. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Asad, how many points in the summary? Minimum 10, beta.